The 702.
Let's walk the talk.
So as I came on air, I told you that the presidency had just tweeted a picture of the president saying the tide is turning, and under the president's leadership, substantial progress has been made to strengthen the fight against corruption and renew our society. And of course, the National Prosecuting Authority Amendment Bill has also now made progress, and this looks at making the investigating directorate a permanent body within the NPA and giving it security of tenure. Let's get some reaction to this from the NPA with Anton du Plessis, who is the Deputy National Director of Public Prosecutions. Anton, good afternoon to you. Thank you for making time to chat to us. Firstly, let's look at what the President is saying, because this ties into what you have said before Parliament and what Shamila Batoy has said before Parliament in terms of the fact that the tide is turning. What do you base this on?
Well, look, I think the reality is that South Africans set the rule of law bar very high and expect these cases, particularly the cases emanating out of Zondo, to come to court faster than they have. But I think the reality is that these cases do take a long time. But if you look at the facts, and it's in that report that the President referred to, there are a number of prosecutions that have been brought through the Investigative Directorate and through our Special Commercial Crimes Unit. And at the moment, what we have is, 207 accused people, very senior people, currently enrolled before court. We have about 900 other corruption prosecutions enrolled through our SCCU. And these are all involving very senior level officials, both from the private sector and the public sector. And in addition to that, we've been able to freeze around 14 billion in allegedly stolen funds, and we've returned 5.4 billion of that back into the fiscus, into the Criminal Asset Recovery Fund. So, it's not enough. We need to do more. We need to move faster. But certainly the narrative that nothing has happened, I think, is not constructive and not accurate.
The making of the Investigating Directorate a permanent body within the NPA is what the National Prosecuting Authority Amendment Bill is intended to do. How will this help you, making the ID permanent and giving you security of tenure?
So look, it's a hugely significant step forward in a rapidly evolving architecture. We do have the National Anti-Corruption Architecture that's looking at broader reforms. But as far as the prosecution of these complex crimes is concerned, not only is it the international best practice, but also South Africa has been there before. We've had what's known as a prosecution-led investigation model. We had it with the Scorpions unit in relation to a broader array of crimes, but we've seen that it works. And basically what that is, it means that we will have a prosecution unit, a specialist prosecution unit that focuses on state capture and other serious corruption cases, that can employ its own investigators, employ its own analysts, and therefore have all of them under the same roof, reporting to the same prosecutor in what's called a prosecution-led. That was the success in the past. That's what internationally we've been calling for it for 2 years. We're very pleased that the National has approved this. There are many other dimensions to it we can discuss, but the primary point is that we'll have a prosecution-led model, which is very different to the model we currently have, where we rely on a patchwork of secondments into the investigative directorate. We simply cannot sustain that.
So the DA's Glenys Breitenbach, who once upon a time, of course, was a senior prosecutor, has expressed some reservations about this, saying we are being asked to recreate a smaller scale model of the DSO, the Scorpions, in the same place with the same problems. The argument by some is that we need a completely separate independent entity outside of the NPA that should be a corruption-busting unit. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think this is not the time to make perfect the enemy of the good. I think internationally that's necessarily the way prosecution of authorities have gone. Where I agree is that we do need to enhance the independence of the NPA, and there's been a commitment made to that. The NPA needs to have more operational and financial independence. It needs the financial resources and the expertise to be able to deliver on its mandate, because these state captures foisted a new beast onto South Africa and to the NPA that we could never anticipate. So what we do need is the broader reforms that have been committed to. I don't think we should take our foot off that pedal. It needs to be pushed forward. But certainly getting the ID to have these powers now as an interim measure, I think is the best step that we could take at this point while these broader reforms get given effect to.
At the start of our conversation, you mentioned the fact that the bar for South Africans is very high when it comes to expectations. You've mentioned how many cases have been enrolled, how many people are currently before the courts. But really there is dissatisfaction, and you agree, from the South African public about the lack of convictions. How close are we to convictions, and when are we going to be able to satisfy the South African appetite for real action being taken when it comes to state capture cases?
Look, South Africans are right to demand more action on corruption, because I think all South Africans know that corruption is what's destroying our country. It's affecting every aspect of our national life at so many different levels, so we have to deal with it. The problem is that we're not going to be able to prosecute our way out of this problem. We won't be able to prosecute all corrupt people in the country, but certainly a number of high-profile cases involving people that have committed the most damage to our constitutional democracy, and not only people, I'm speaking about corporate as well, private sector and the public sector, will certainly go a long way towards dealing with the perception problem that we currently have. I think that perception problem, or the fact that South Africans set the rule of law bar so high, is a good thing, not a bad thing. It puts pressure on the NPA, and of course we have to act independently and not give in to that pressure. But it's a good thing. I think that thirst for the rule of law and accountability in our country is probably one of the things that stand us in the best stead as we move forward. I think if there was a disdain for that and people moving beyond the rule of law, I'd be much more worried. South Africans must demand more accountability, demand more justice, but must realize these cases are incredibly complicated and they will take a bit of time, and there are various dimensions to accountability. I've already mentioned taking back the stolen money, but there needs to be a whole of society understanding that corruption is destroying this country, and at all levels we need to bring ourselves back from the precipice. The prosecuting authority is only going to be one aspect of that, and we need to do more, and we need to do it faster.
Anton du Plessis, thank you very much for your time. The Deputy National Director of Public Prosecutions, responsible for strategy, operations and compliance, speaking to us there about turning the tide against corruption and what it will mean to have the investigating directorate being made a permanent body within the NPA.
702.